Coming up on We Talk News this week, Minnesota is still waiting on their governor to sign their legalization bill, making them the 23rd legal state for adult use. Plus, a pathogen is eating up healthy cannabis plants all over the country and making them worthless. And New York State's legal market continues to grow, but zoning becomes a real challenge in upstate. In Massachusetts, the commissioners abandoned a pilot program for social cannabis clubs while promising to create a social club license with new regulations. And New Jersey opens up more dispensaries, including Nova Farms, based in Massachusetts. And one of the most successful medical dispensaries in the Bay State for the past 10 years, Red Clinics, finally gets an adult use license for their Somerville location. All that and coast-to-coast cannabis news coverage on We Talk News with Alaina Pinto. Next.
We are Pro-Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to We Talk News for another week. I'm Alaina Pinto. All is relatively quiet on the federal reform front as the debt ceiling debate continues to dominate Congress. There seems to be some optimism that the safe banking bill might actually get their day on the Senate floor, and indications now are that it will pass, but amendments could still derail it. Andrew Beringer has the latest on that, plus that evil pathogen that is eating up flower crops from coast to coast.
Andrew Beringer here from Washington, D.C., reporting for We Talk News. Quick updates on a couple things across the board on the federal level in Maryland and Virginia area. First off, the Safe Banking Act and an update. Not a lot going on currently. It's still making its way through the congressional session, and we are still crossing our fingers and hoping for the best outcome. Now, we are waiting because of the June 1st update to the budget of the government. We will have to see and report next week to see if there's any updates with the Safe Banking Act. Second, a large cannabis pathogen is destroying crops mainly in California right now, but they say that a lot of this pathogen is covering across the country in many states, and that we have to be aware of it because as of right now, California states that this pathogen is in 90% of their crops. Does not sound good. Lastly, in Maryland, a bill that says cops are unable to pull you over, search, seizure, or have probable cause due to the smell of cannabis alone. Now, probably imagining that can be a little iffy. How does one say, oh, we'll pull you over for just smell alone? Because guess what? Cannabis and hemp smell exactly the same when you consume it. That's all I have for We Talk News. Reporting from Washington, D.C., this is Andrew Beringer.
One of the biggest challenges facing the cannabis industry, besides the fact that it is still illegal at the federal level, is where to place dispensaries in new legal states. Regulations prohibit visible locations near schools or even another dispensary in the same area, and that pushes many of them deep in industrial parks. Corning, New York, a city of just over 10,000 people, is 4.5 hours from New York City in a central part of the state. In March, Union Chill was awarded a conditional license from the state for a location approved by the Office of Cannabis Management. They thought they would be welcomed in that town since when given the opportunity to opt out before December 2021, Corning did not. On May 1st, local politicians there imposed a new zoning rule that dispensaries had to be located a minimum of 500 feet from community facilities. That change in zoning rules all but ended Union Chill's attempts to open a dispensary in that town. This is a familiar story in new cannabis legal states where many dispensaries are located in less than desirable locations deep in industrial parks. Another sign of the challenges facing this new industry all over the U.S. But in Michigan, no problem with zoning now. But that state has other issues, as Rick Thompson explains in his Michigan Cannabis Report.
Hello again, everyone. This is the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News. Let's begin. A monumental court case went to trial last week, but we know very little about it. In 2021, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency issued what was at that time the largest cannabis recall in American history, the target of which was Viridis Laboratories. The regulators claimed the testers were not properly screening cannabis for microbials and were engaging in THC potency inflation. The evidence they provided was pretty sound: eyewitness reports of undercounted microbial samples and the use of an unapproved method of testing for THC. Viridis sued and won a limited decision, which sent about half of the recalled products back onto Michigan retail shelves. The damage was done, however, and Viridis sued the regulators, claiming they knew the recall was bogus. In the lawsuit, Viridis named at least 4 government employees as personally responsible for the recall and that they used personal bias in targeting Viridis. That suit began last week, but is shrouded in mystery because the judge in the case has banned all media and reporters from being in the courtroom. This information blackout is within the judge's discretion, but is completely out of alignment with the public's right to know and defies the government's claims of transparent operations. The Michigan Press Association and the MLive Media Group have made requests of the court to make records and transcripts available to the public, but those requests to date have been ignored. The conduct of the state's largest cannabis testing lab and the actions of government agents should not be kept from the citizens, argues the media groups and advocates. The trial is set to conclude this week, but may run into the next. It will be months before the judge in the case releases a verdict, and even then, it's sure to be appealed. We will keep you updated. Well, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency released a set of more than 90 proposed changes to Michigan's cannabis laws, both medical and adult use. Within the proposed changes are new monthly financial reporting requirements, changes to the way special cannabis consumption events are authorized, faster reporting times for licensees who enter into the litigation, and many others. One of the more controversial proposals involves the regulatory agency refusing to renew the licenses of companies who do not pay their bills, which would be a first in the industry. There is great confusion about how this non-payment reporting would occur and to what degree the CRA has the authority to deny licenses for poor financial performance. Those proposed rule changes will be reviewed and debated over the course of the summer, and many of the government's suggested fixes will probably never be implemented. Stay with Weed Talk News, and we'll keep you in the know on these topics and others as the discussions progress. And that's it for the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News.
What do first class funk, grapple pie, and grape gas all have in common? If you know your cultivars, you would know they are all cannabis strain names. Now, these sun-grown strains will be available at one of Arizona's largest distributors, Copper State Farms. Even though they are vertically integrated, which means they control the seed to sale process, Copper State Farms will be limiting the amount grown of these special strains in order to preserve their quality. Could a craft grow inside a major grower's vertical be a trend for MSOs? Well, Karen Black has more from Arizona.
I'm Karen Black with Greenfinger Consulting. Welcome to the Arizona Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Arizona Senate Bill 1466 took another step forward, having passed the House Rules Committee 7-0 on May 15th. The measure has broad support both within and outside the legislature, and according to some, would help to reinvigorate the state's medical marijuana program, which has seen revenues decline month over month since the advent of adult use. Key provisions include reducing the cost and extending the term of medical marijuana cards and waiving the fee entirely for veterans, adding post-traumatic stress and autism disorders as qualifying conditions, codifying the use of telemedicine for MMJ appointments, and improving tracking and traceability. Additionally, the bill would make it so marijuana advertising, packaging, and branding requirements match other applicable rules and would standardize the definitions of marijuana and marijuana products across the board. Phoenix-based Item 9 Labs Corp. has announced some major changes. Short-time CEO Michael Weinberger stepped down after only about 6 months on the job. Several other C-suite changes were announced, concurrent with a restructuring plan that includes cutting expenses by $3.5 million. Mr. Weinberger will serve Item 9 Labs as a strategic advisor going forward, and board chair Doug Bowden has assumed the CEO position for now. Incidentally, the same week he lost his job, Mr. Weinberger lost his bid to be named Individual Innovative Champion of Change at AZ Big Media's 2023 Champion of Change Awards, as another candidate was declared winner at the May 18th gala. Another Phoenix-based company, Forefront Ventures, announced the departure of director Amit Patel on May 16th. The company is currently seeking his successor to chair its audit committee. That news came on the heels of the company having released its mostly positive first quarter results the day before. Forefront's 2023 first quarter revenue increased 7% over Q1 22. 3 Phoenix dispensaries celebrated anniversaries this past weekend. Harvest of Tempe, which is now part of Truly Family, and the Giving Tree both have a decade under their belts, while the Nirvana Center in the West Valley reached the 4-year mark. That's all for this week's Arizona Cannabis Report. I'm Karen Black of Greenfinger Consulting, reporting for Weed Talk News.
Driving under the influence of cannabis continues to be an issue for public safety and subsequently for law enforcement. Now, with 40 states allowing for medical cannabis, identifying people operating under the influence of their medicine is a real challenge. The question is, if you have cannabis in your system and it stays in there for 30 days, you may not be impaired while testing positive for cannabis. In Pennsylvania, a medical-only state, new legislation has been introduced to protect legitimate medical card holders from being cited for DUI, since that plant can stay in your system for a month. With more on this movement in the Keystone State, here's Maya Kristofowicz with more.
I'm Maya Kristofowicz from Scarlet Express, and I'm here in the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, reporting for Weed Talk News. First up, Pennsylvania House members introduced a bill to protect medical cannabis users from DUIs. Under current Pennsylvania state law, a person is guilty of DUI if he or she drives with any amount of Schedule I controlled substance or its metabolite under the Controlled Substance Act in his or her blood. House Bill 983 would amend this law and treat medical cannabis patients the same as patients using a prescription medication by requiring proof of actual impairment as the basis for a DUI conviction. This legislation is essential to ensuring that patients are not being charged with the DUI for the mere presence of non-psychoactive metabolites and without proof of actual impairment. Next up, a bipartisan pair of Pennsylvania senators announced on Friday that they will soon file a bill to legalize marijuana in the Commonwealth. They said, with neighboring states, New Jersey and New York, implementing adult use, we have a duty to Pennsylvania taxpayers to legalize adult use marijuana to avoid losing out on hundreds of millions of dollars of new tax revenue and thousands of new jobs. While the bill hasn't been officially filed and the text is not yet available, the senator said that it would improve upon our proposal from last session. The bill is intended to be introduced by the end of June. Exciting time. That's a wrap from Pennsylvania. I'm Maya Kristofowicz from Scarlet Express, and I'll be back next week to talk about what's hot and what's not in Pennsylvania. From Weed Talk News, have a fabulous week.
Now that both houses of Congress in Minnesota have approved adult use, the governor there, Tim Walz, is scheduled to sign that bill next week. That would make Minnesota the 23rd adult use state in the country. Sure enough, some ancillary companies are preparing for that change. That includes Vicente Cederberg, one of the nation's most well-known cannabis law firms. This week, they opened an office in Minneapolis and named one of that state's leading advocates, Jason Tarasek, as their lead attorney for that state. Meanwhile, in Missouri, the sales keep coming, But now wholesale prices are rising because of the lack of supply for that record-setting market for a new state. Our man in Missouri is Brandon Jones. Here he is.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News, sponsored by Baker Brands. I'm out here at beautiful Waterworks Park. It's one of the most beautiful disc golf courses here in Kansas City. Lots of elevation change, beautiful, very old oak and pine trees out here. It's just a beautiful setting. And yes, thanks, Alaina, for checking out the Missouri market. Yes, sales are continuing to go up and up and up, which means supply is continuing to go down and down and down. So right now we are having some issues with supply chain here in Missouri just because they didn't expect the market to take off as fast as it did, and with the actual gross amount of sales that are going on in the state from out-of-state residents that we've discussed previously on the show. So one thing that I would do for a tip, how I would find my dispensary to purchase from is just Google the 3 closest, okay? Then you look at 3 different categories. I would look at flower, concentrate, and a vape. Just make sure you're getting the same brand, same exact SKU. Make sure you're actually going to look at the same 3 things at each place, and then just take a little tally. It's only going to be a total of 12 items. If you look at 4 different SKUs in 3 different locations, compare the prices, see who's not actually making you pay a little bit more than extra for not having enough supply. Most dispensaries should be charging twice what they're getting from the cost of the manufacturer. But as I've noticed here in the market, some are starting to push that a little higher. So again, what I would do is just find 3 or 4 SKUs the exact same at your 3 local closest dispensaries, see which is selling it for the best. And then they're probably going to be the same on throughout their entire menu. So that's how I would choose here with dealing with the supply chain issues. But they'll be having those issues and not being able to have cannabis here, right? So thanks again for Brandon Jones. I'm from B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and thank you again to all of our veterans for your service and sacrifice. Have a great week.
Brandon Jones, Missouri Cannabis Report is brought to you by Baker Brands, a curated B2B marketplace for head shops and dispensaries.
In New Jersey, 3 more legal dispensaries have opened for adult use, bringing the total to 35 in the Garden State. One that is scheduled to open in July is Simply Pure in Trenton. That one is owned by a Black entrepreneur named Tahir Johnson. He could be the poster person for social equity in that state. And here's the Garden State cannabis reporter, Jill Goldsberry.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jill Goldsberry here with We Talk News New Jersey, and I'm here with the New Jersey Report. Here's what's happening. The New Jersey Cannabis Insider Awards 2023 takes place on June 8th and will recognize excellence and achievement in the New Jersey cannabis industry. The award show will return to the Carteret Performing Arts Center in Carteret, New Jersey, with a new format that includes more awards. So space is limited for this exclusive event, and tickets are actually on sale now because voting has ended. So get those tickets now. It's a dress to impress event that will include a cocktail hour, the award show, open bar, networking, late night bites, drinks, and entertainment. All the things people in the cannabis industry love, right? So winners in each category will actually be invited to a special rooftop event and after party. And we know that's going to be fun. Some of the awards to look out for are excellence in cannabis law applications, excellence in cannabis law municipal lawyers, excellence in commercial building operations, excellence in dispensary operations, excellence in consulting, and let's see, minority-owned business of the year, woman-owned business of the year. You get the point. There's a lot of awards. So get your tickets. It's happening on June 8th. In other news, in Woodbury, New Jersey, Nova Farms, which is the Northeast's largest privately owned, vertically integrated cannabis operator, is proud to announce that they're opening a flagship operation here in New Jersey. It's the first retail dispensary in Woodbury, New Jersey, opening on actually today on the 19th. And Nova is not the first, but it's the first one in New Jersey that is a non-conversion, exclusively recreational adult use dispensary. Try saying that 5 times. And according to Nova spokesperson, New Jersey is a great example of this, and we're excited. They're excited to show the New Jersey market what Nova Farms is all about. And currently, Nova has 4 other dispensaries, 3 in Massachusetts, 1 in Maine, and with 2 outdoor cultivations in Massachusetts and Maine, and 1 indoor grow facility in Rhode Island. So they also manufacture and process cannabis products in those states, and will do so in New Jersey. So look out for them. They are going to be located at 642 Montua Pike in Woodbury, New Jersey, and they will operate longer hours as well, from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day. And from what I understand, Nova is an experienced retail operator that will bring its expertise to the New Jersey market. So we look out for that. Another opening coming up soon is Elevated by the Cannabis Lady Dispensary. Elevated will feature craft cannabis from local cultivators like the brand Miss Grass, who's also from New Jersey, luxury products from My Base Bud and Her Highness NYC, things like that. So if you're looking for more information on Elevated by the Cannabis Lady, they will actually be opening, soft opening in July, it looks like, this summer. Don't quote me on the date, but I was told that the soft opening is coming up in July. They're going to be located at 9 Highland Place, Maplewood, New Jersey. And feel free to go to thecannabislady.com for more information. Thanks for watching. I'm Jill Goldsberry for We Talk News New Jersey. Have a great day.
Nova Farms opened in Massachusetts, and yes, now opening in New Jersey too, but the commission decided to curtail any pilot program for cannabis social licenses in order to come up with more permanent rules and regulations for that type of license. So with more from the Bay State, here's PCM founder Jimmy Young.
I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young with the Massachusetts Cannabis Report, sponsored by Holyoke Cannabis. When Bay State voters passed the adult use legalization ballot question back in 2016, cannabis social clubs were supposed to be part of the new market. 7 years later, the Cannabis Control Commission has never issued one license or even released regulations that will be the requirements for those establishments. Now, they've abandoned the pilot program that was in place under the first commission, but never implemented. The commission wants to make sure that when they finally issue these regulations, there would be no need for a pilot program. Just applicants for those licenses. So stay tuned in Cannabis Standard Time. It might just happen before the end of this calendar year. One of the most successful medical-only dispensaries since it opened in 2018 is Revolutionary Clinics. After applying for an adult use license for years, Revs finally was able to get one for its Broadway location in Somerville. In Connecticut, over the past week, Mark Shepard's trade show, New England Cannabis Convention, called NECAN, made its first stop in Hartford. Pretty good showing for the vendors and, of course, the interested parties.
Explain to me what this is.
This is an ounce joint right here, and it's rolled with a glass funky field tip.
Nice.
The after parties, of course, are always fun. This one was sponsored by Connecticut. It featured raffles and a piñata supposedly looking like Harry Anslinger. You know, the guy that was the first drug czar in the U.S. during Prohibition in the 30s.
He's a New Yorker, everybody.
Cannabis Creative Group's Dan Serrard hit a home run by destroying that piñata. That was all filled with swag and other goodies. That's the Massachusetts Cannabis Report for this week, sponsored by Holyoke Cannabis. I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young reporting for Weed Talk News.
Bay State Cannabis Report is supported by Holyoke Cannabis, Holyoke's finest cannabis recreational experience.
In Illinois, 3 different dispensaries have to deal with unionized workers calling for a strike against Rise, where they work. With more on this, here's Cannabis Legalization News' Thomas Howard.
What's happening? It's me, Tom. You can find me at CannabisIndustryLawyer.com. I'm here for today's Illinois update in the cannabis space for Weed Talk News. First, the legislature was supposed to be adjourned last Friday. They didn't get their work done, so they need until next Wednesday, May 31st, to do that. Is cannabis still in the mix? Yes, it is. with SB 1559, sponsored by Democrat LaShawn Ford. Let's go over what this commonly called Cannabis Omnibus Bill does. First, most importantly perhaps, craft growers would immediately start at 14,000 square feet of flowering canopy space, up from 5. Next most important, drive-through cannabis dispensaries could be coming to Illinois if the omnibus bill passes. Not only that, you also no longer need to use an odor-proof jar for transporting your cannabis. Makes sense considering that odor is no longer considered probable cause for a traffic stop in Illinois. Anything else? Perhaps? Yes. Tune in next week when we go over everything that has or has not changed with cannabis laws in Illinois. Back to you in the studio, Alaina.
Out west in Oregon, there was a crackdown on illegal grows with raids of 5 illegal operations. This bust was the culmination of an investigation over the past 5 months. Those operations were all raided at the same time at 7 p.m. PST on Tuesday of this past week. 665 pounds were confiscated during the raid, and they also confiscated 630 plants. Law enforcement is now tracking down the rest of these organized operators who were exporting their cannabis to other states. And Marianne Kersagi has the rest of the stories from Oregon.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with this week's Oregon Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This week, another retail chain with financial problems has made news. Chalice Farms, the third largest chain in Oregon, has petitioned the state for receivership, citing $35 million in debt to its publicly traded parent company in Canada. There are also approximately $3.7 million of trade payables that will hurt small farms and vendors owed money by Chalice. On better news, the Oregon Leaf Bowl was last weekend and highlighted some of the amazing products grown and manufactured here in the state. Winners include Green Clover Farms, High Noon, Cannabis King, Farmer's Friend, Nelson & Co., and so many more. That'll do it for the Oregon Report this week. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Weed Talk News.
Now let's turn to our international correspondents in Europe and in Canada. We start with Lex Pelger, who tells us that one of the most appealing places to visit with a history of consumption is Amsterdam. But those rules are changing. So here's Lex Pelger's European Cannabis Report.
I'm Lex Pelger from White Whale Creation with this week's European Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Amsterdam has finally followed through on their threat and has banned the smoking of cannabis on the streets of the red light district. After a long campaign by residents complaining of quality of life issues, the move is hoping to tackle crime and antisocial behavior. Violators will first receive a warning, followed by a €100 fine. For now, tourists will still be able to smoke on the terraces of coffee shops, but the council warns that if the nuisance does not decrease sufficiently, they will look at banning smoking outside of coffee shops as well. On the Isle of Man, the dependency of the British Crown, they plan to diversify from shady financial dealings into medicinal cannabis. They announced plans to have up to 10 firms licensed to grow cannabis by the end of 2025. But oddly, the cannabis licenses sit under the island's gambling regulator. Last year, they issued their first conditional license to Grow Lab Organics, who hopes to soon be exporting 15 tons a year. In Switzerland, the city of Bern becomes the 5th municipality to join the experiment of allowing medical cannabis to be sold at pharmacies. They will recruit 1,000 people and study them for any negative effects. No advertising will be allowed, and the products will be sold in neutral packaging. That's the European Cannabis Report for this week. For more on the science side, see my newsletter on Substack, Cannabinoids and the People. I'm Lex Pelger from White Whale Creations reporting for Weed Talk News.
The stock market continues its volatile journey this week, with the stalemate over the debt ceiling being the biggest factor. Cannabis stocks have not been free from that turmoil, so here's Doug Miller from High on Wall Street.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. Cannabis stocks took a nice nosedive last week following the Senate's hearing on the Safe Banking Act. And in some ways, it's expected because any federal cannabis legislative news sends stocks in one direction or another. Now, this dip could have been from the looming debt ceiling that the government is just playing games with. They like to wait for the last minute to resolve this, and this time they're kind of playing with fire. So as the time keeps ticking, every stock every company in every sector seems to be dipping unless you're an AI company. Now, let's look at Cresco Labs because they just reported their first quarter results and their revenue dropped by 3%. Now, as of March 31st, 2023, their current assets were at 286 million and a restricted cash of 90 million. They had about $382 million in debt. Again, you have to look at the balance sheet to look at the important information. And now let's go ahead and look at the stock chart. It's trading around $1.87. It wants to curl up, so watch for that pullback and dips for a good opportunity. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
And finally tonight, a story out of California, the nation's #1 cannabis market. With all that business and opportunity in the Golden State, there are always scammers out there looking to con you out of money. Well, sure enough, disbarred attorney 68-year-old Mark Roy Anderson was indicted on 5 counts of wire fraud, where he bilked investors out of $9 million to fund his non-existent hemp farm. Now, when you invest money, it's always good to do thorough background checks on the people you are funding. But many of them found out that Mark Roy Anderson was arrested for fraud from another scam that got him an 11-year jail sentence in 2012. When potential new investors asked him about his past, he claimed it was a different Mark Roy Anderson, and they believed him. Only in the cannabis world. That's Weed Talk News for this week. I'm Alaina Pinto, and remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of In the Weeds, and once in a while, the really live business cannabis talk show we call Green Rush on Friday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weedgets filtration system. What? The Weedgets.com, Weedgets, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product.
Both cool the smoke from 1300 degrees to just 90 into your lungs. Plus, the maze pipe and pre-roll filters get rid of all the gunk that you just don't want in your lungs if you can help it.
Add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weedgets.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. All that resin and tar is collected in the polyurethane filters that are easy to clean with soap, water, and a few Q-tips. Your lungs will thank you, and so will I.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the Armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.
You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems, whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while and have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that it will make lives more difficult, because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
Safetiva Labs in Westfield is fast becoming the #1 testing lab for cannabis in Western Massachusetts. Safetiva understands the importance for accurate on-time test results for your product. That's why their current compliance panel turnaround time is less than 2 days. That's Safetiva Labs in Westfield. For more information, go to safetiva.com. The Vermont Cannabis Report is supported by another Green Mountain business, Cannatrol, winner of High Times Best Dry Cure System. Check them out at cannatrolls.com.